With the talks around Jack Campbell and the Leafs' new contract being pretty quiet lately, it looks like the Toronto Maple Leafs may have to look out into the unrestricted free agency market or look to trade for a goaltender if they're going to have a new number one starting next season, and a guy who has come up and may have potentially priced himself out of the current market he's in is Ville Husso in St. Louis. Could Kyle Dubas and the Toronto Maple Leafs be looking to sign Ville Husso as their new number one? What's up, Leafs fans, and welcome back to Leafs Digest. The boys took a little bit of time off there at the end of the season, a little bit to drown out some of our sorrows and get over what just happened after losing in yet another Game 7. But then things went a little bit quiet around Leafs Nation. I mean, most notably, Jason Spezza retires from pro hockey and moves into the front office, which I think just all around, it wasn't even much to react to there. It's just a good move by the Leafs, probably a move Jason Spezza was ready to make at this point in his career, so that's exciting news. But now we start looking towards what the Toronto Maple Leafs will do this offseason, and the biggest concern at this point is starting goaltending. Jack Campbell is an unrestricted free agent, and he is going to be looking to get paid. He showed here during his time in Toronto that he was able to play the starter minutes. I even looked to the playoff series, the ones that he lost in against the Montreal Canadiens, and then most recently against the Tampa Bay Lightning. The Toronto Maple Leafs did not lose those series because of Jack Campbell. He was good enough in those series to at least keep them in it. No, he did not steal them games, but no, in my opinion, he did not lose them games. While the troubling part of all this comes that he's going to be looking to get paid. The Leafs sit here right now with $7.8 million in cap space and are looking to fill that spot in. We obviously had Peter Mrazek back there with $3.8 million AAV hitting against our cap, which is a little bit tough, so they may have to try to move that during this summer. But goody. One goaltender who has come up in conversations now, especially being linked to the Leafs because of David Pagnotta on the NHL Network, is Ville Husso. He's going to be looking for a new contract. He finished the year out in St. Louis, other than really in the playoffs, as the starting goaltender, and it looks like they won't be able to re-sign him. So Pagnotta reporting on the NHL Network that you're probably looking at $3 to $4 million for him on a 3 to 4 year contract. If the Leafs lose out on Campbell, he's going to be a target for him. Now, I don't mind the idea of going and looking at Ville Husso as being a guy to step in here, but leaning on him to be the number one goaltender after the small sample size that he has in the NHL is a little bit concerning to me. And shelling out a huge amount of money to a guy like that to just come in here and take over that role also concerns me when I look at a guy like Matt Murray or even his goaltending partner from last season in Jordan Binnington, when those guys kind of had a little bit of a flash in the pan type scenario, got paid, and then they haven't been able to do as much since. So where do you sit right now on the Ville Husso conversation and kind of where he comes in at the term and the money that's being reported by David Pagnotta that he might be looking for?
I think it's worth a little bit of a risk here because beggars can't be choosers. And right now the Leafs goaltending situation looks pretty dismal. I mean, Jack Campbell, I think, is the priority to bring back, as he should be. You're right. We did not lose a single playoff series because of him. He always looked sharp during the regular season. I know we went through a lull there where he was battling injuries, talking a little bit about what his contract's going to look like, some mental gymnastics getting to him a bit. But I mean, if you lose that on Campbell, I think you give it a shot. Why not? This guy has some pretty sharp numbers. He's really not that old. Goaltenders take a while to develop anyways. I mean, look at Jack Campbell himself. That's kind of a testament to it. It just still doesn't feel, overly ideal. And I know for a fact they are going to find a way to bury Peter Mrazek's contract. Like, it absolutely just needs to happen, whether it's to address your goaltending situation or any other gaps you're going to have in your roster throughout the year. That has to happen. I know they want to package like, some sort of pick with him, like a Nick Robertson, something along those lines to get it done. But honestly, you're probably going to need to do it in order to have the players you need for a winning roster. So Ville Husso, I think, is a viable option. And you know what? At least with Binnington and Murray, they kind of got overpaid because they had a cup to show for it. However, with Ville Husso, I think you can get a more economic rate there, which makes me feel better. And he's relatively young for a guy with his sort of path, I guess. He was a later developing goaltender. The numbers looked really good. He was a solid starting goaltender on a winning team. Overall, I like it. And they were facing Colorado, as you mentioned. Like, that's a bit of a bias there. they're going to light up pretty much any goaltender. Look at what they're doing to Vasi right now. So all things considered, I'm definitely open to it. And I think that they're at least going to meet with him and figure out what the numbers look like, regardless of Jack Campbell.
Yeah, I would actually agree with that as well. I think it's something that it's worth reaching out and kind of seeing what he might be looking for here. As you touched on his numbers and his age, he's 27 years old. Last year was only his second season in the NHL. He was in the AHL with St. Louis's farm team prior to that. But his first season, 17 games played, 3.21 GAA, an 8.93 save percentage, and a 9.61 record. Very, very underwhelming. But his second season, which was last year, where he stepped in as the number one, kind of in replacement of Binnington when he wasn't holding his own, 40 games played, 2.56 GAA, a 9.19 save percentage, and a 25.7-6 record for the season. And I'm looking at a guy like that. Those are pretty solid number one, if not maybe a 1A or 1B type situation with a goaltender where you're looking at good save percentage. He played 40 games. He had a big sample size in his season last year where you know he can hold up for a longer period of time. So that's kind of nice to know. But it's more just about one thing that I kind of think with goaltending here, and we saw it with Peter Mrazek, is that over the long term, a guy could have really good numbers. But goaltenders can be very back and forth unless they are the top of the top. When you're talking about probably a Shesterkin or a Vasilevsky, Fleury in his prime, Jonathan Quick in his prime, like those guys, they were consistently the best. Everyone else, even a Darcy Kemper right now in Colorado, when I'm putting him in the second category here, those guys can bounce up and down. They could be very good one year and very average the next, or very bad for part of a season or a whole season, i.e. Peter Mrazek. So you don't necessarily know. And it's if this guy put together 2-3 years of really good hockey, it doesn't mean that the fourth one is going to be incredible. So at this point, if you're going to take a risk on him, it might be best to do it now where you can get him off of a hot season and maybe he rolls into that. And the other part of it is, hey, dude, you've only had one very good season. Where if he goes out next year and has another really good one, his value could increase. So if you could get him around the $3 million mark for that 3 to 4 years, I feel like it doesn't tie you down way too much. It gives you a good opportunity here. And as you mentioned, he played on a winning team in St. Louis last year that was very good. They won their first round series against Minnesota. I mean, they just run into Colorado in the second round. And by the way, even to this point right now when this video is coming out, St. Louis is the only team in the playoffs to have taken any games off of the Colorado Avalanche. They're the only team to have beaten them at all in the playoffs this year.
Yeah. And I mean, St. Louis is no, bummy organization. They're putting a good team in front of them. So you know how I feel about scenery making making goaltending look great. However, I don't think you take a step back going to Toronto. If anything, you take a step forward and he'll have an equally as good blue line to help him figure it out. So that makes me feel a bit more comfortable about it as well. However, this is the more likely situation that you either get Campbell, Husso, one of these guys, and kind of play around in the free agency market. But the other alternative here, which seems far-fetched, however, is possible, would be to say, is there a blockbuster deal out there where you can bring in a goaltender? And again, I mean, they exist. It's just whether or not the Leafs want to take that price. And especially on a guy who, you get hurt, it's done. He is the guy that stays on the ice the whole game. It is really going to screw with your whole team dynamic. Yeah. Do you think there's any possibility where they kind of actually explore that? Or is it just like head over heels, way more likely that you end up re-signing Campbell or playing around in the UFA market?
Hey, I'm going to throw this out there, and this is a teaser for anyone who has not liked and subscribed on this video yet. Make sure you subscribe to our channel, and you will get notified every time videos come out. Subscribe to the Leafs Digest channel here. We will have more news, rumors, trades, all that kind of stuff being broken down. Anything that pops up, and Goody, I'm not going to fully answer your question because it'll give it away, but there's one thing I want you and everyone else who's still watching right now to just think about and put in the back of your mind. There is one team who said today or over the last 2 days they would be willing to eat half of their goaltender's salary in a trade to move on from him. Sergei Bobrovsky in Florida. The Florida Panthers have said that they would be interested in eating half of his salary in order to move on from him. And I think there is another Leafs Digest video coming down the pipeline, maybe breaking that down if there could potentially be a fit for him here in Toronto. But Goody, going back to the Husso thing, here is one final question that I have, and it kind of relating back to him, the contract. And I will just say as well, if you're going to go and get Husso, I don't think you pay him any more than what Peter Mrazek's salary is currently at. I do not think you shell out any more than that $3.8 million for him. I would like to keep it at 3.5 or below. Maybe that's wishful thinking, and if it goes above that, I would be okay with him going to another team, but I'm not comfortable necessarily the more it goes past 3.5. And the reasoning being, I'm looking at a goaltender here in Toronto who's getting paid 3.8. He had a good record coming out of Carolina, comes here to Toronto, and it just falls off the wagon. So I look at Husso. He has one really good season. Yes, who knows what he'll be next year or for the next 3 years. So shelling out $4 million, I'd much rather just give 5 to Jack Campbell and have him come back, or 4.5 to Jack Campbell. Anyways, tying into Ville Husso here, Goody, we're watching the Colorado Avalanche take on the Tampa Bay Lightning in the Stanley Cup Finals right now. As it sits right now, the Colorado Avalanche are up 2-0 over the Tampa Bay Lightning. Their starting goaltender is Darcy Kemper, and their backup goaltender, who played games and won games in the previous series against the Edmonton Oilers, was Pavel Francouz. You're facing the number one, if not 1B goaltender in the entire world, and Andrei Vasilevsky, and the Colorado Avalanche have given them an absolute pumping. Do you only need average or above average goaltending to win a Stanley Cup in today's game of hockey?
Yes, and that's why I feel like the blockbuster scenario is really far-fetched, because you said it at the beginning of this video, Jack Campbell was not what costed us our playoff chances at all. And say what you want about the first round, Tampa's still a wagon, even though Colorado's having their way with them right now. Things could have been done better. Of course, the Leafs could have moved on. The reality is we didn't. We fought a really hard series. But yeah, in my opinion, it is all scenery. You look at what he's doing right now in front of Colorado, talking about Kemper. It's like you have a team that good. And especially when I look at even Carolina and what they were able to do from Mrazek, I said it even when we first got him. I was like, this worries me a little bit, because they are so defensively minded. They might not be better than the Leafs, but they put so much more emphasis on that end of the ice. Like, it might amplify him a little bit. And it certainly did, or whatever the reason was for his lackluster season last year with the Leafs. I think you just need a guy who can go in there, give you that 900 save percentage, and then you fill out the rest of the roster properly, and you give yourself a really good chance with how good the Leafs are. So I wouldn't hit a panic button on getting a blockbuster deal done for a bona fide goaltender, if you can even call Bobrovsky that right now. But yeah, we'll definitely pump out a video on that. So make sure to subscribe, hit the notification bell so you're always notified when we're uploading. But I think obviously the route here is to go and see if you can get Jack Campbell, and then Ville Husso as a secondary if that doesn't work out.
All right, I will just finish up answering that question by saying I still disagree with you that goaltending is very easily replaceable, but what I will say is that I do think you can win with above average goaltending. If you have an incredible team in front of you, I think you can win with above average goaltending. Point being, Jordan Binnington, Matt Murray, Antti Niemi with Chicago back in the day. It can be done if your team is incredible, plays the right way in front of you. Hence why I would feel comfortable re-signing Jack Campbell and bringing him back and having him be the guy again. And if not, I still think, hey, as long as you're not shelling out too much money onto Ville Husso here, it could be a good signing this offseason. But, Goody, Leafs fans, thank you guys so much for tuning into this one. Let us know in the comments below what you think the Leafs should do with the goaltending situation this offseason, if they should sign Ville Husso, and if they do, how much money would you be willing to get him for? And on top of that, how much money would you be willing to give out to Jack Campbell? Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Make sure you hit like and subscribe on this video. We will see you guys very soon with yet another video. It feels good to be back, so we will be putting out a whole bunch more videos, Leafs fans. Thank you guys so much. Keep believing.
Signing off.